Today, I'm talking to Kevin Brown with Sotheby's International Realty in New York City. Kevin is a top agent in the city and on the field team who has a track record of being the top team in Sotheby's International Realty as well as in the city. Kevin represents buyers and sellers and has an average sales price between $4 and $6 million. His sales along with the teams include record-breaking deals and properties offered for over $100 million. He is one of the city's premier luxury townhouse, co-op, and condominium brokers. He has over 30 years of experience that includes being a former owner and chairman of Century 21 New York Metro and a partner of Ashford Warburg Real Estate, now Warburg Realty. Today, we talk about how to find and stay on the journey that leads to success. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Today, we have Kevin Brown from New York City with the field team. Kevin, Yay. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, no, thank you for having me.
All right, so I'm going to share a little bit about Kevin for those of you who are watching us live or didn't listen to the intro. Kevin is, I think you guys are the top team in New York City.
Exactly, on the Upper East Side, yes.
So top team, New York City. These guys are doing, you just sold a property for $80 million.
Correct.
I believe that was Jeff Bezos's home, but I'm sure.
As you know, at Sotheby's, we don't, mention.
I'm sure you can't talk about it.
You can,
but
it was well reported.
I'll let myself get in all the trouble because it will be worth it, but a really exceptional team of real estate agents. And your average sales price ranges between $4 and $6 million. The team does as well. Let's start off, and it's a team of 20 people. But before we get into that, let's learn a little bit just about you, how you got into business, how you became successful, and what in the world you were thinking to get into this business.
Well, thank you for having me. A lot of questions.
I know. That's because I know you're going to answer it the way you want to anyway.
Exactly. It's, if we go back 30 years, I've been in the business now going on my 31st year. I never intended to be in business. And I know, what I want to talk about, for instance, is, what inspires me. And because that tells part of my story. And what inspires me, if one reads my bio, I was studying for the priesthood, for instance, and you say, boy, the priesthood and real estate, what do they have in common? Why would somebody who's studying for the priesthood get into real estate 31 years ago? I don't think that most people, whether you're in real estate or outside of real estate, understand really what inspires them, and therefore what inspires people to come to them, or what their passion is. What my passion is different than others, was different than your passion and other people's passion. Once you know what your passion is, you can do miracles. You can, climb the highest mountains. Nikki's passion, for instance, is, we were having this discussion, my partner, Nikki Field. Her passion, she is just an amazing human being that she can put together as many pieces of a puzzle, and she can see the whole puzzle, and she loves putting together the puzzle. My passion is intimacy. And that's the core, that's the core of the priesthood or real estate. I love the intimacy that real estate affords us. Intimacy with other brokers, intimacy with buyers and sellers, and it propels me forward. It gets me up every morning. Once you know your passion, then you can again, climb the highest mountains. I was giving a talk down in Miami, and I gave this example saying that Nikki and I were talking, and we were saying, our conversion rate is probably only 2%.
Wow.
If you think about it, because you sit there and say 98%, as you know very well, we don't get paid. 98% of what we do. We're showing properties, we're discussing the market with people. And then it dawned on me, I think it's the same conversion rate that Jesus Christ had. I'm not comparing myself to Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this is great. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and saying that's okay, 2% conversion rate. Like, don't want to say I'm in the same class as Jesus, but it's.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about. I mean, this is on the same topic. It is a great example, and I want to tap into, the correlation to real estate further. But I always say, and I don't mean this sacrilegiously or to compare any of us to Jesus, that we always have to be careful with this topic. But I always say Jesus only had 12. Like, talking about your network and your closest people and your referral sources, he had his key 12. He didn't have 1,000 friends, or he had 12.
No. And he touched a lot of people, and they walked away. They just didn't resonate. And so you sit there and going, for me, for instance,
our business could be very much the same. Yeah.
I know, out of 10 people that I deal with, that 8 of them, they move on in life. I move on in life. We don't even think about it. 1 out of 10, they either want me dead or I want them dead, or it's a mutual, it just doesn't click. But then it's that last 1 out of 10. That, again, inspires me. I fall in love the very first time I go out with them. I will walk through, like fires for them. That's what gets me going. And whether it's the broker that I'm working with that inspires me, or the buyer or the seller, it doesn't matter. Define again your passion. That is what, and without doing too much of a plug about Sotheby's. I mean, we've been doing this. Sotheby's is over 275 years old, and we have 19,000 agents from around the world. I travel to 72 countries. I travel constantly. Why? Because I have a home base. I have a home base in Chicago. I have a home base in Seattle. I have a home base in, Taiwan. With Sotheby's, we really it has nothing to do with me, but what a great foundation to work from.
Well, and foundation is everything. Again, this isn't a church session, but there's something in the Bible about building on a strong foundation.
Yes.
So it's relevant.
Oh, good girl. That was going to be a test later for you.
You would know where. I don't remember where. I know it's in the New Testament. I think Jesus said something about it. But
yes, we'll make it up.
So here's what I'd love to know, and I'm sure everyone else is thinking the same thing, whether it's, our top agents who listen to the show or people listening to the show who are in the business or thinking about it, is understanding how to do that. And so I'd love to hear how when you became an agent, you came out of priesthood and you made the decision to go directly into being a real estate agent, or how did that evolve?
No, there was some other steps in between. But as I then look back on my life, now I see that there is a thread, between all the different pieces. And, have you ever noticed, I know you employ people also, as an employer, I have an assistant and an intern and also other people. You ask them saying, what are your strengths? And it can be somebody who's from, mainland China, and they immediately start telling me that, it's, I'm good at this computer program or that computer program. And I'm sitting there, a tiny bit bored, listening to them, because I know that's not their strength. Then I ask them saying, what do you take for granted? And they go, well, I don't know. I speak 5 languages. That's your strength. Yeah. My strength, and it took me again, and maybe it's, maturity, evolution, me evolving, that it took me years to understand that my strength, for instance, was not in management. You know, one of my, I just took a test, and one of these personality tests, and you know, I was like the regular, you know, I'm this or I'm that. You know, I didn't care. I was bored with it. But then a follow-up email that I got from them, they said, "What are your weaknesses?" And I thought, that's interesting.
Oh.
And they said that you know, so many people are afraid of delegating, you know, because they like the power, they like the control, they like everything else. They said, "Kevin, you over delegate." I found that fascinating. You know,
Well,
like
I remember you said, talking about this is in an interview I've listened to of you before, and you know this, but you said, "I'm great." What did you say? Talking about, you said Nikki is great at time management. You're great
at effort management.
At effort management. That was it. Effort management. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, and then that's where, you know, like I just said, personality wise, if somebody else is doing it, God bless them. You know, I don't need to do it. I'm not, you know what's changed in our business. I don't know about, you know, your business, but in New York City, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it was so competitive. And your co-broker, the person on the other side of the transaction, they would always pretend that it was, you know, who's going to be the top dog, you know, and they beat, you know, like try and beat me up, or, you know, beat up the other side. Now, successful brokers, it's all about facilitating a transaction. We're far, far more cooperative now with each other.
Yes.
And it's just is interesting how we as an industry has evolved. I mean, you have to realize that your neck of the woods is completely different than ours. We're so backward here in New York City. We don't have an MLS.
I was going to say, yeah.
And we don't do you do contracts? Do you write contracts?
You guys have to write them.
No, we don't do anything. Basically.
We have the form. Well, we have the forms here.
Oh, we're not even allowed to do that.
That's what, I've learned that like every contract is different.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yes and no, but that's what lawyers want you to believe. But it's just that, because that's lawyer driven, that law. And we're not allowed to, if somebody asks me about accounting advice, if somebody asks me about legal advice, I refer them.
Well, we can't do that either, but we have contracts that are written by attorneys that we can, sometimes I do feel a lot like an attorney, even though I'm not.
God bless you.
Yeah.
You're like, intelligent and beautiful.
I love you. We're gonna have Rokon, my editor, replay that over and over. That's your one-liner. Yeah. When we talk about the show, we're just gonna play that like over and over for 5 minutes.
And somebody told me years ago, saying that if somebody pays you a compliment, like always get them to repeat it. Say, "I'm sorry, what'd you say?"
Oh, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Exactly. You're beautiful.
This is recorded, so we can just play
beautiful.
it. You said I'm smart too. Love it.
Exactly. Smart too.
I'll say it for you. Anyway, so back to, I am sure everybody's dying to hear a little bit more about going. I always say this business, and you can tell me if you disagree, please, is a little bit like a spiritual journey. Yeah. The same as I imagine priesthood is, and dealing with the negotiations and the people and the intimacy of the people's lives and how you're helping them. But is there anything that, obviously that correlates with you, but how did you find your passion? Did it have anything to do with priesthood, or did you just kind of fall into this business and then you looked backwards and it worked itself out?
Yeah, good question. But and yes to both answers. Because that's what life is. It's a dance, and so you learn, like every day. And that's interesting that I love talks like this because it makes me like dig a little deeper and think about it. And you had mentioned about the 12 apostles. One of them was kind of like off.
Well, and then that's another example.
Exactly.
Sometimes there's one who's off.
But
right.
But each one specialized, in one market. Well, that's what Nikki originally specialized in townhouses, and actually medical spaces, and she had never, did medical spaces before. It was in a townhouse, and then she ended up selling the townhouse, and then it built up. For me, it had to do with, let me digress for a second. 80% of our marketplace are co-ops, and co-ops, there's all sorts of requirements, and typically,
Oh, yeah.
you have board interviews, they can turn you down, and so on and so forth.
I was gonna say, I think, but yeah, you may want to define co-ops a little more. A lot of us know what they are, but it's basically
co-ops, you're buying shares into a corporation. So except for maybe 7 buildings on Park Avenue, they're all co-ops. That's what New York City was based on, was the co-op model. And so when you're buying an apartment, you have to supply all your financials. There's an interview. You can get turned down for whatever reason, except for legal reasons, but they'll never tell you why you were turned down. It's for me, a very, it's a screwed up system.
yeah. Well, I know, but I know there's one in Atlanta, and it's on Peachtree Road. And that's it. But in that I know of. So if I'm wrong on that, 75 I'm pretty sure there's one.
And the rest are what's called real property, which are condominiums and townhouses.
Townhouse. So you specialized in co-ops?
No, I personally, Nikki is great at co-ops. I specialize in condominiums and townhouses. My specialty originally was actually townhouses. Why? Because none of the, it was a small firm, Edward Lee Cave, who actually founded Sotheby's Real Estate, and this going back 30 years. And everybody around me were, DuPont, Pierpont, Rockefeller. I mean, it was very high end.
Wow.
And then there was me, Brown. I didn't know anybody. And I was coming from, and I remember Edward Cave came up to me and he said, who do you know? And he was talking about, who do I know, of note that he could work with. And I said, well, I actually know the Pope, Pope John Paul II, and I know Cardinal Bevilacqua of Philadelphia. And he turned on his heels and he said, I don't think either of them are looking for a property in New York. And, he dismissed me. So then I realized that, what I needed to do was specialize. And so I went after the condominium market because all the other brokers were very, very high end. And they didn't know. Condominiums were only for people who couldn't get into co-ops. Nowadays, it's shifted that while only, call it 25% of our marketplace are condominiums, more than 50% of our sales are with condominiums throughout the city. So it's so weighted that everybody wants a condominium now. Why? Because the flexibility of purchasing, the flexibility of renting out. A lot of co-ops you can't even rent out at all. So
I want to talk about the specialty component of finding your specialty. So I think that was a great example of, you're in a market where everybody's doing the co-ops because that's where everybody wants to be. That's where the price point is. And you realized you didn't have a competitive edge.
Yes,
so you looked
exactly.
So you said, okay, where's my competitive edge? Nobody's interested in condos because that's the leftovers.
Yes.
But that was a small market that nobody was interested in. So you could dive into it and know more, and that could jumpstart you in your market.
Right. And then, everybody, this is, one of the geniuses of the field team is that we have specialists. And so like right now I'm the specialist in new development, and, with condominiums but we have a specialist in Brooklyn. We have a specialist for millennials. We have a specialist in Upper East Side co-ops. And so we have a specialist in rentals, but then we also take that specialty and bring it out to, we have an Asia desk, we have a Russia desk, we have an India desk. And so, by having, does that mean I don't do co-ops? No, I still do co-ops. I still do, everything, but it focuses me. And if people are focused, whether it's a broker or even a buyer or a seller, one of the big, issues with, I think, brokers, we try to be all things to all people. In New York City, which is kind of like Jesus again, but like in New York City, you turn around and if somebody comes to me and they're looking for a 2-bedroom on, 5th Avenue between 70th and 90th Street, the first thing I tell them, is, you know more than I do right at this moment. And they're shocked. I set up my, my parameters right away, what to expect from me. And I said, you've already been in the marketplace. You've gone on all the websites and you know every single 2-bedroom in that area. I'm required to know 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, townhouses, east side, west side, downtown, rentals, co-ops, condos. I cannot focus in. I said, give me 1 day and I'll focus in. But so I tell them right away, because when you're taking somebody out, they play the who knows more game.
Yeah.
And and I said,
so address it up front.
Yeah, I said, you win.
Exactly.
People pay me a lot of money. People pay me a lot of money not to tell them what to buy, but to tell them what not to buy. That is the key. And so I set up,
That's a great, you say that again. That's important. People pay you a lot of money not to tell you
what to buy, but what not to buy. It's kind of like a parent, like with their child's getting married and they bring that. I have 2 boys and I'm waiting for them to bring home their respective spouses someday.
Well, be careful, because sometimes that just to them might be then you've got the rebel buyers.
I know, exactly.
So being a specialist, it becomes, because your specialty on your team is new developments. Is that right? So being a specialist, I would imagine, well, I think we all know, it becomes very easy to win the business that you specialize in. Right. And you end up having your time becomes more efficient.
Yes.
You're spending a lot of time on that. So when you bring on a client, how do you determine, for example, a client, especially the ones, and almost all of them at the moment do know more than we do because they are in the market. Right. We just have the experience and knowledge, and we can tell them what not to buy. How do you determine which ones to work with? And do you refer them within the team, or do you have or is a team set up so because you have specialists in other categories, you can represent them but have resources? How does that work?
A good question. I do refer them out to our team, all the time. I also refer people to other firms, just not within Sotheby's. There is an advantage if for instance, if you're losing an exclusive, refer them to another firm, get a referral fee, of course. But yes, now that tells the owner that you're more interested in them than, the company itself, and you keep the customer then. That's the key. You keep that relationship.
The relationship.
Whereas, like most of us, at the end of an exclusive, we're saying, fine, go away. And the owners are saying, go away also.
Well, that's your talent in the intimacy and the authenticity with clients, is your ability to understand them, put yourself in their shoes, communicate.
But also it's how we look at ourselves. We don't look at ourselves as, or I don't look at myself as an agent or a broker. I look at myself as a real estate portfolio manager. And, that is, I think, key, because everybody in New York City and almost in every market, everybody has second homes, third homes. So, what we do is saying, we want to, like a private banker, let's
say that again, everybody, so they hear it. Real estate portfolio manager. Like a banker, you were going to say.
A private banker, and that's another, and don't get disappointed because, that they are dating, other brokers also, in that process.
Absolutely.
I remember that Daniel Chang, who runs our Asia desk, the head of our Asia desk, he had been with HSBC for, I think, 14 years running Asia. All of Asia. And he told me one time that, and very high net worth individuals in Asia, they always have at least 3 private bankers. Why? Because they're getting information from different sources, different viewpoints. I mean, it's, look at the, maybe in a negative way, somebody sees an accident, and the 3 people see it, you have 3 different views of how the accident happened. Well, the same way with a real estate or private banking. So they'll have three different viewpoints. But if you look at yourself and manage your own expectations so that you're not disappointed, because
Great advice.
we all take it to heart.
Well, isn't it amazing how when you're managing your expectations, what you put out to your clients is what you get back when you manage them from a place of empathy. So I love that advice about managing your own expectations. I think when you manage yourself and you manage yourself well, that gives you the ability to also manage your clients incredibly well.
Right. But realize what, because you're a very successful broker, saying that, it's not that buyers are liars, is that we're all redefining constantly, what our needs are, what our goals are, what our own skill sets are. And so, a buyer who will say, or a seller, for instance, I want the highest price in the shortest amount of time with the least inconvenience. Three things. They usually say, oh no, the price is the most important. I'm in no rush. Then you sit there going, well, no, what they really want, and but it's a journey for them also. And as you turn around, and so that conversation evolves.
That's a great way to break it down, though. It's usually it's price, time, and ease, but price, time, and ease mean different things to different people.
Exactly.
And there are things that they don't realize. The black swan, I always quote Chris Voss, but the black swan of their situation, and sometimes they have their own black swans, meaning what we don't know, or sometimes what they haven't themselves yet discovered is important, and asking those questions sooner.
Right, exactly.
So tell us a little bit. Do you want to add on to that first? Because I'm going to ask you about the team for a minute. But communicating with clients, setting their expectations, setting your expectations, winning business, getting the deal closed, developing the relationship.
And what I mentioned about also, why I'm paid so much money, but I remember that somebody very, very high net worth individual, he turned to me and said, oh, Kevin, I know why you're so successful and always ranked high in the real estate world. And I immediately thought to myself, oh, it's my looks, it's my charm, it's my intelligence. And he said, it's your and he said, I hope you don't take this wrong, you have a certain irreverence. You don't think of yourself as so important. And I said, we're not saving the world. We are we take care of 5 minutes of a person's life. That's all. It's an important 5 minutes. We're seeing people at their best and their worst. And then and when I mentioned the 10 people, the average 8 out of 10. The reason why the 8 out of 10 move on and I move on is that, and that's a good broker doesn't waste time, is that saying, no, it's not, happening. There's no spark. It's again, like dating, have you ever, I've never gone on speed dating. I don't know if you have.
Well, I'm going to quote Chris Voss again, just because it brings it home. And then to give us about the speed dating, it's not a sin to not get a deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get a deal.
Very good.
But tell us about the speed dating.
No, I want to absolve you from your sins.
Wait, you right now?
Exactly.
Okay. And what is the point of it?
Is this
a speed dating test?
I don't know about speed dating.
Is this a speed dating test? Right. How are you going to do that?
Okay. No, I'm going to fall back on something that, you and I have talked about in the past, and that is how one gets business, how I got business at the beginning of my career. I turned around and I started sending out letters and marketing. Watch what brokers tell you and why they shouldn't do something. Oh, I'm not going to send out a letter or a postcard because, they're a waste of time. The average in mass marketing, the average success rate is something like 1% to 2%. That's it. Mm-hmm. I would send out 5,000 letters every single month. I refuse to do it like just a Xerox. Do they Xerox anymore? Whatever.
I don't know.
Copying it. I signed each letter. I put a stamp on each one, licked it myself.
5,000?
5,000 every single month. I made sure, and if I could, put down the person's name, on it. And I made it as personal as possible to that building. So you ask yourself, whenever I'm speaking or whenever I'm writing something, I always ask myself, so what? Watch what, of course, like most of the postcards that people send out is a complete waste, because you sit there and going, somebody writes a postcard saying, I'm Sally Smith. I don't know why I pick on the Sally Smith. I'm Sally Smith. I'm, like vice president of XYZ, a real estate company. And if you want a market evaluation of your home,
like
I
every other
reading it.
agent,
I would have, when I had my own company, I would have the brokers, I'd save all the different letters that, came in to, my agents, to their exclusives. And I would make them read. I'd say, oh, I want you to read these letters for the next hour. They would always come back 5 minutes later and going, they're all alike. They all don't, they all, why, if Sally Smith, if she said, first, amazing, how many letters start with, my name is Sally Smith. They could have figured that out. It's on the bottom of the letter. They don't need to see that as the first line. The second line.
It started with about them.
Yeah, and then they say, I'm senior vice president. So what? If she had only said, then as senior vice president, it allows me marketing, dollars to, it allows me to have marketing dollars, and therefore, and so what? Having marketing dollars, I can reach more people, so on and so forth, to the point where I can get to the highest price possible. Most people do not write letters well. The most effective letter that one of my agents wrote, he started off saying, "Dear Mr. Brown, I don't know exactly when I fell in love with 100 United Nations, but all I know is that the minute I walked in, I fell in love."
Wow.
Who's not going to read the rest of the letter?
Wow.
I tell this to people all the time. There's a lot of things I talk about that I don't do myself because we are all lazy. There's a lazy part in every industry. There's a woman named Donna Olshan in New York City. She has a firm of a couple of people. I mean, she's not a major player. What she does every single week, she does the Donna Olshan report. And what she reports on are only properties that have gotten under contract for $4 million and above. All public knowledge, but because there's a 60 to 90 day lag here when something goes under contract to when it sells, the market changes every 10 minutes. We're pivoting constantly. Now all of a sudden that's real-time information. If I was in your market, I would just do that religiously. That's the second part, which I'll return to. And Donna is, she's Wall Street Journal quotes her, the New York Times quotes her. She's the expert. And you go, well, why don't other people do that? Why don't other firms do that? And firms are as lazy as
agents,
individual agents.
why do
I do a calendar, like every month, which I'll again, return.
That's your thing, by the way.
Yeah, and other firms have tried to do it, and they fail because they lose interest. When I had my own firm, I would hold up, like a marketing letter. I'd say to the agents, "What's the purpose of this letter or of this marketing piece?" And they'd all yell out, "To get the exclusive." And I knew 100% they'd fail. Every single one of them. The purpose of you have to know what your purpose is. The purpose of that letter is to get your foot in the door. That's the only purpose. I want to be one of 3 people that are interviewed. If you also say to get an exclusive, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to fail. And when agents would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, Kevin, I want to do, like a postcard. I want to do a marketing letter." I'd say, "Great. What are you doing for the 5 months after that?" "I want to see a 6-month plan." oh no, I want to see how it plays out. No,
Well,
complete waste of
that,
money.
you talk a lot about consistency. Go ahead.
Yeah. Consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah, and
Consistency.
that is one of the, I think, the greatest failures of all of us, in the brokerage community. We're not consistent. Look how many agents that you probably interviewed and know that they all said they're doing a deal and they're only focused on that one deal. You better have 4 deals right behind it, because when that deal
Exactly.
is complete, there is no parade. There is no balloons coming down from the ceiling cheering you on. You're going to be disappointed. Whereas if you have other deals in progress, then you pivot again. That's that. Thank you, Mr. Trump. He's taught us how to pivot. That's our world now.
Yeah.
What I tell my buyers and sellers, what I'm telling you right now, and I believe it with all my heart, is 100% correct. Ask me the same question tomorrow, I'm going to maybe have a different answer.
That's great advice, because I learned that after a decade in this business, but the market changes all the time.
Yeah.
And so do our clients and their situations all the time.
Yes. And you sit there and what we forget is that sellers, they're also pivoting their needs and their desires. And so, try to encourage them to be open with their pivoting. We think, oh, seller just wants to sell and that's it. And we allow ourselves to pivot with the market, but we never ask the other side, saying, why did God give us 2 ears and 1 mouth? To listen twice as much.
In this entire interview, even though you've not said it directly once or not much, and I did hear you about listening, and I'm just talking, but because it's relevant to what you're saying, is questions.
Yes.
Is everything you've said underneath the surface of it has been asking, it's not what you say, it's been knowing their perspective or getting it and asking yourself the right questions and your clients the right questions.
I think that most of the problems of the world isn't that we don't have the answers, we're not asking the right questions. And let me digress again regarding those letters. So, this is how I started off doing the letters. Then what I would do, I'd always get 3 calls. And, one call was usually, don't ever write to me again. Another one would say, no, it's long sold and, you're, like idiot or something. The third one always would say, I'm not interested in selling, but okay, I knew I had them. So what I'd immediately do is set up a meeting to go over and look at their apartment. Then I'll make this as short as possible. Then they would turn around and I'd show up. Everybody else would, show up who were being interviewed with big books, of, what their company has done, what they've done. Way too soon I'll bring a business card. That's it. Why? I'm setting up a situation where I'm constantly making promises. I'm setting up what I call the credibility foundation. So now I've gone over and I've seen, Mrs. Jones. And remember, in New York City, we have 50, if she's in, apartment 30C, there's probably 50 apartments that are identical right above her and 20 right below. So it's not kind of hard to price them out. But I'll sit there going, oh, Mrs. Smith, oh, your apartment is so, wonderful and different. Look at those white walls. I'm just shocked. She'll always try and pin me into giving a price. Never, ever give a price right away. Why? Because I want the conversation to keep on going. And she said, oh, give me just a range. No, I want to go back, and here's the key. Go back to our pricing department. I'm the pricing department also, by the way. Go back to our pricing department, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. I'm setting up my my credibility. And so
you're continuing to set up that credibility.
Yes.
From the appointment setting to the pricing.
Exactly. And then, I turn around and I then call them the next day and I say, it's on its way. Then, once it arrives, I immediately call up and say, oh, my partner, Nikki Field, would like to just come over and view it because she might have a person. Within that, scenario, we all have our own way of doing it. Within that time frame, that 1 week time frame, I've spoken to, what was her name, Mrs. Smith? I've spoken to Mrs.
Sally Smith.
Yeah, I've spoken to her more times than her family has spoken to her in 1 week. But it's all setting up a promise, keeping it, setting up a promise. It's coming in 1 hour. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Once I establish, and the other thing that I do when that initial telephone call, I immediately get off the phone with her as quickly as possible, because I say, oh, Mrs. Smith, I'm speaking to Europe right now. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to turn that off. I'm speaking to Europe right now. Can I call you in 5 minutes? That's the very first promise I make her. Then I get on the computer, I go tut, 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 and I look up saying, okay, 100 United Nations, 30C, to make sure it's not on the market. I immediately see what the recent sales are, because I can't remember any of this stuff. I immediately look at the floor plan. Then I call her up and go, oh, Mrs. Smith, I'm so sorry, that call, I had to, finish up that call. Oh, you're in the C line, aren't you? And she said, well, yes. Oh, I love the C line. I love the split bedrooms. That view, I think, is one of the best views in New York City. And everybody seems to like, 100 United Nations. I mean, look at the recent sales. I've just established credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Then I shut up. I've established credibility. Don't keep selling yourself once you've established credibility.
Yeah.
So then I move on to the meetings and everything else.
Well, notice how you made all of those things about her.
Yes.
Her experience, her condo, not about you, not about how great you are, not about your average sales price, not about you being the top team in New York City forever, but being partners with Nikki Field. But it was about her unit, her situation, and what was important to her.
Absolutely. And, I think, I've listened to so many other brokers, they talk about, collaborating, about the price, saying, oh, it's a collaboration. No, you're the expert.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be able to tell them, and even, the issue of commission, it's amazing how many.
Right, so don't quote the amount on the commission.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, go ahead.
But they dance around that.
Yeah.
Instead of, tell them right away, commission is part of the marketing strategy. You negotiate a commission at the right time. You don't do it
exactly. Yeah.
You do it at the end. And once you tell them it's okay to have that conversation, that you're still going to be their friend, you're not going to be insulted, they're fine with it. I've never ever lost a pitch because of that.
Wow, that's great advice.
I tell them right away. I'm not embarrassed about that.
Well, and I think you bring it up first. You don't wait. Everybody avoids the topic. When it's the biggest thing on their mind, you call out the white elephant.
Yeah, which is silly, because obviously it's the smallest part of the transaction. They'll reduce their price 10%, 15% over a year and a half. I don't know about your market, but our market, like, for instance, on the over the $10 million, I just brought on an exclusive, a great exclusive, but I told the people, it was $11 million. I told the owners, saying the average time on the market for anything over $10 million is 38 months.
Wow.
Some of my sisters,
average.
Yeah, that's the average. Some of my sisters, my younger sisters' marriages didn't last that long. A number of them didn't last that long. So you sit there and go, like, holy moly.
Right. That's a great way to put it into perspective. There's a lot of marriages that don't last that long.
But I also had, in her defense, she's big into commitment. Is the follow through. That was the issue.
Believe me, I'm a supporter. Like, I've got no issues. And hopefully I'm sure our listeners have all kinds of opinions on that. Luckily, that's not our topic. We've hit on Jesus. We even touched on Trump. And now we're talking about divorce.
Exactly. I know we've covered so much territory.
Here's the other thing. You're not afraid to, and commission, bring it up first. Yeah. Love it.
I mean, you sit there and going, I mean, this is what, there is a collaboration, but it's a journey that, again, we're carrying the cross, if you will, a few steps of the way, like Simon did. We're not, it's not our cross. It's not our property. It's not our journey, what they're going through with their children or anything else. It's the real estate, and we're supposed to just help them for a few steps of the way. And then it's their life again. And again, that 1 out of 10 that you knew from the very beginning that you've fallen in love with, you'll stay with. And these are people that they can call me up in the middle of the night. They know I'm going to say yes before they even finish the question. And I can call them also. And that is what, and there's brokers, that, are the same way, I have a, network of very special, brokers. Did you sit there and going, I can call up and I know that they're going to say yes. You're one of them. You are so remarkable that, you draw people in, and that is your strength. And you put in the effort also. You are not just somebody that is waiting for something to happen. Just by having this, podcast, that speaks volumes of who you are. And that also then ripples into your relationships, probably with your buyers and your sellers and with other agents. So bravo to you.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you. So we've got like 5 minutes, but we'll be 10. Because I want to ask you, I want to do our final 3 questions, which you probably don't know what they are, but that's kind of makes it more fun. And don't worry, they're not, okay. I mean, the things that you talk about, hey, they'll be easy. But if you can touch quickly on your team structure, what is the structure and how do you determine who specializes in what?
The specialization is really, what people are interested in. If somebody said, Kevin, you're going to specialize in co-ops, I don't believe in them. I'm sorry. There's something very undemocratic about the whole process. And so it just rubs me the wrong way. So, a person to be part of our team, they have to have already had the focus, so we don't say to somebody, okay, you're now going to be, the Brooklyn specialist. They're already working Brooklyn, and the reason why the specialties are so important is that if somebody comes to us, we can immediately say, we have a specialist that's working that market. This is what commercial brokers do, and so we're not reinventing the wheel. Commercial brokers, have, I think they call farming areas, and they specialize in certain, areas, certain buildings. Well, and you're the same way, saying that specialize in a certain area of town, certain price point.
Exactly.
You can also specialize in certain professions in terms of customers. First 20 years of my business, I was 99% into exclusives. The only buyers I ever took out were people I sold to.
Wow.
I just refused. Why? I had no legal relationship with them. I did not want to be one of these people that took somebody around for a year, befriended them, and then at the end of the year, they write to you saying, oh, Sally Smith, there she is again, pops up. But Sally Smith just showed me an apartment. I wasn't looking, and I know that, you're so happy for me that you're buying, that we're buying this apartment through Sally Smith, and then they give you a tie or flowers or something.
We're digressing, but I like it because here's my question. And then I'm going to bring you back to the question about the team. In working with these buyers, and because I think a lot of people don't address that, because especially when you specialize, it's easy to work with a buyer because you know the market, and it's so easy to do it quickly, and you can usually generate a deal quickly regardless. But on the flip side of that, there's the risk that they could do that. How do you have that conversation? Because you're apparently very good at it and calling out the white elephant and getting it signed.
I don't know if in your market, if you have buyers reps. We do.
I've only
one piece of paper once in 30 years that somebody was, a buyer was dumb enough to sign.
Okay.
And, you know, it's, we just don't have it. So there's no legal.
So how do you get, so you were talking about it, so you said
No,
exclusives. Does that mean for listings or?
just for listings.
Okay. So you were only doing listings.
I was
and
only doing
buyers.
listings the first 20 years.
I actually started that way myself.
Yeah, and you know, I loved it, you know, because, and I had more listings than probably just myself, more listings than 98% of companies had as a whole. You know, I mean, I would typically have 30 to 40 listings.
Because that was your focus.
That was my focus, and I never wasted time on, you know, spending a year with somebody. Sotheby's, I've switched. At Sotheby's, and it took me again, you know, sometimes the light doesn't hit you right away. I was wondering why I'm so successful now and taking customers out. It's because they're foreigners. I'm only taking them out, their focus, and I'm focused, and they're not looking for a best friend. And so I work the international market. I work other brokers in the United States because I probably get now, this week I received 3 referrals from Sotheby's agents.
Wow.
And it's just because I know that people are coming in very quickly and they're going to be leaving. So I have enough stories lined up for, to entertain them for 3 or 4 days. You know, I don't want to spend a year with them and they don't want to spend a year with me. But that's, you know, like the issue. And so
we've got like 5 more interviews we could do out of this conversation, because now I want to know, and like, because there's 2 things. Well, when you bring buyers in, I've come up with a format that works well where they're able to learn quickly, but they don't have to have me by their side for 3 days, because they don't want that.
Right.
And neither do I.
No.
But it'd just be, what is your effort? The effort.
Yeah, effort management.
Effort management.
And you turn around and you anticipate their questions ahead of time, whether pitching an exclusive, you know, anticipate their questions ahead of time and answer them. Well, the person taking out, you know, like in New York, they're going to be, you know, wondering where the nearest schools are, where the nearest hospitals are, where the nearest, you know, so you anticipate their questions. So it doesn't, you know, become, you know, an issue, and you get them to start dreaming. One of the tricks in sales 101 is get them to say yes. So for instance, if you're pitching an exclusive, you sit there and going, well, would you like to see your, would you like to see your listing in 72 countries? Well, yes.
Right.
You know, would you like to see, like, you know, with 19,000 associates, top associates from around the world having access to it? Well, yes. Would you like to see, you know, like, you know, for, you know, the listings to be on the #1 page? Once you get somebody to say yes a few times, this is a dating thing also, you know, which I don't date.
Here we go back to the speed dating. How do we get back to that?
You know, but get somebody to say yes a few times.
Yeah.
And you have them, you know, so let me finish. So going to an apartment, you know, like, or a townhouse, sit there and say, oh, can you see having your holiday parties here? Can you see having,
put them in there visually?
Yeah. Once you get them to talk about that, go ahead.
It reminds me, we were talking about selling, which we didn't finish. Well, now we've got 2 topics going at once. Everybody, we're going to go back to the teams.
Yes.
But I want to just hit on the listing presentation, because when you meet the seller originally, you just bring yourself in a card.
Absolutely.
And you probably promise something and you deliver it after.
Exactly. Right.
And then you have more, you continue to communicate.
Exactly. You know, and then and don't be, if they're not willing to sign, ask them. You know, I mean, the same way, flip over to the working with customers. One of the first 3 questions I asked them: what have you seen, and why didn't you bid on it?
Questions, great questions.
You know, you sit there and going, because that's going to tell you everything. If they, you know, they'll say, you're like, oh, I'm between the, you know, $3 and $5 million range, let's say, and then you sit there and going, but they already put in a bid on something that got turned down, and it was, you know, like $6.5 million. Well, now, and it tells me then exactly what if they put in a bid on something, they'd kind of fallen in love with that property. So now I know what their type is. and so it makes my job
Exactly.
easy. That's what
Again, effort. What is it? Effort management.
effort management.
But that sounds like a touch of laziness, which is, I would argue, is not the case.
I
It's
know
just work smarter, not harder.
I oh, you have done speed dating.
So tell me, and then I think I said 10 minutes ago, 10 more minutes, but you've got to tell us, because we never,
Okay.
like ADD, like on
Right,
steroids today. But I love it. That's what makes it fun. Team structure. So there's 20 agents or people on the team.
There's 20 agents at Sotheby's. Everybody has to be licensed. So they're all
Okay.
agents. But in reality, there's out of the 26, I would say, are, senior, let's call it. And I don't mean to being old, which I am, but that, are, focused. And then we have support. So for instance, I have an intern and I have an assistant who's quickly becoming more of an associate because he's just so good, Andrew.
Okay.
And so, we're grooming the next generation.
So you've got, did you say 26
20.
total?
We have 20 total.
So 20,
that's including assistants, that's including
okay.
Our head of our marketing, including an intern. And so, again, we're grooming, the next generation, if you will.
So how many of the 20 are agents in the field doing deals, winning business like yourself?
Well, they actually all are, but
okay.
it's just a matter of if they're being, like for instance, the business has been referred to them. So you still have your fingerprints on the transaction, versus like, Nikki's a rainmaker. I'm a rainmaker. So we bring in just a lot of business that the referrals. Out of the 3 referrals that came in this week, like 2 of them I'm going to refer out just because I don't want to learn a new part of the marketplace, like the Upper East Side or Upper West Side rather, because I don't do that. And so it's effort management and also time management, but for me it's more effort management.
So on the team, do you have anybody that while they are licensed, they're always behind the desk, like handling closings, handling marketing, handling listings?
Yeah,
how do you manage that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, like again, my assistant is that way, that he doesn't handle. I typically, for showings, for instance, he'll do the first showing, and if there is a second showing or third showing, then I know there's interest. He'll do my open houses for me, and I trust his insight because he's just so smart and so knowledgeable now. So he is my ears and my eyes. That said, I'm very, very careful because owners are hiring me. And so I'm supposed to be their eyes and their ears. And so it's a very fine line on how you delegate.
Exactly.
And so, as I mentioned earlier, that, when I didn't mention this, that, there is about over delegating, and I over delegate.
I like to over delegate.
Yeah.
I have that weakness.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're.
Oh yeah, exactly. Can I marry you? I know there's a couple.
That could be a problem.
I know. Yeah. There's a couple of impediments.
Because but then there's also, we'd both over delegate.
Exactly. I know. Both of us will be in bed going, waiting for them to do something.
Okay, and I'm going to get this out of you, because 20 agents, you've got specialists, but you and Nikki are the partners of the team. You're the rainmakers for the team. And you've got everybody's licensed, but not everybody's out doing business the way you are.
No, and we also we just brought onto the team Mara Flash Bloom she's our downtown, and she is just a powerhouse of activity, focus, and she has 2 assistants, if I remember right, and so she's also like a major rainmaker. So from that, then all of a sudden we can delegate and but we're kind of always focused in on and that's again, like Sotheby's, especially, like our team, but Sotheby's, we are into relationships. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in selling an apartment. I'm interested in having that long-term relationship. It's like somebody once said that Sotheby's is not a real estate firm. We're a marketing firm that happens to sell real estate.
Yes.
That's what we're doing. We're marketing.
And so much more.
Yeah.
Okay. So the final 3 questions, and we're going to get Nikki to tell us the team structure because you're the connector.
Right.
She's putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You're just making everybody feel loved.
Yes.
That's talk about strengths and focusing on them. So last questions. Number 1, what has been your most powerful tool in doing business? And we could talk about tangible tools like not your phone, but an app or a CRM, or is it a type of networking that you do? Is it a way you ask questions and listen to people? I mean, this is a broad question.
The most effective, in fact, marketing tool.
Any kind of tool to be successful.
Yeah. But, I'm not, what do you call them? CRMs?
Right. You're not one of those guys.
I know, whatever. And all the tools, the wonderful tools that Sotheby's gives, I'm too either old or lazy, or what I find most effective for me is the calendar of charitable events that I do every month. I send out, let me close this, and I send out 28,000 of the calendars every month, via email. I now have Seattle, I have Beverly Hills, I have Washington, D.C., I have Chicago, I have they're all now doing calendars, and we all link up. So I say to people, do you want, it's probably 150,000 of these calendars are going out. Brokers make a mistake all the time that they sell something or they establish a relationship, buyer or seller, and they are constantly saying, oh, I'm going to stay in touch with them and keep sending them listings or my newsletters, quote, or market reports. The people don't care for at least 7 years. They have zero interest. You got to figure out how to stay in touch with somebody.
And engaged.
Engage them. Nikki does a market report every quarter. She says to all the team members, anybody who wants it, Nikki is very, very, very generous in everything that she does. She says, oh, Kevin, if you want to put your name on it, send it out. It doesn't resonate with me. I say to all the team members, anybody who wants to send out the calendar, it will be your name, your picture, your blurb, whatever you want to say on it. It will take Andrew, my assistant, 30 seconds to do it. You just have to drop in your email addresses and it will clean itself up and everything else. Nobody's done it because it doesn't work for them. It doesn't resonate.
Well, 2 things, the specializing and passion. What's your passion? And that's what draws your clients, which keeps you focused on the 1 out of 10 that work with you, not worried about why you didn't get the other 9, because that's not what you need to worry about.
Right. And so that, to answer your question, I'm sorry, it was a long answer, is the most effective tool for me is staying in touch via my calendar with all these agents. And for instance, in New York City, there's no Caldwell banker. So I go after all the Caldwell banker agents throughout the world.
Wow.
Who else are they going to refer to?
Because they're not well, that's when you're tapping into your passion for other agents, charity, connecting, not market reports. That's not your passion. You don't even bother with it.
No, because it changes it. Whatever I'm, again, on the market report, whatever you just typed out is old news. Nobody cares. And, that's the other thing that,
nobody cares.
In your industry or other, industries.
I like the market reports. And nobody cares.
Sit there and going, but why?
So what? Like, that's my favorite. So what?
I mean, people sit there, yes, so what? If
so
you're
what test?
If you're living at 845 United Nations Plaza, and people send these market reports of the entire city, they don't care. It's kind of like what's happening in Bangladesh. They only care about their neighborhood, their line in that apartment. But people sit there going, oh, I sent them a market report, like Yahoo.
Did that engage? Yeah. This
No,
is
it
so
doesn't.
what test. That's what
Yeah,
you need to call it. Did you run it through the so what test?
yeah, the so what test. Okay,
That's your
second
biggest
question.
tool, the so what test.
Yeah, so
And
what?
the calendar report passed
Yeah.
it or maybe failed it, which meant it was good to send out. Next question. Book. What is the one book that is most impacted or you would most recommend to affect your life and or career?
You're not going to like this, or maybe you will. I
Oh,
don't
yes, I
know.
will.
It really is the Bible.
I knew it. I knew it.
No,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
it's the journey that Jesus did with his successes and what we call failures. I mean, you look at it. Jesus was he failed. I say to people all the time, saying, "Why should I succeed where Jesus failed?"
Wow.
And
Yeah.
once like it's my guiding light. And I mean, we're only here for a short time, and
Yeah.
if I can make somebody else's journey a little less bumpy, again, I'm not playing the Jesus figure. Like,
Oh, I know. No, I
like,
get
and
it.
if I
Yeah.
can do that, then and it is one thing I mean about real estate books, if you will. I used to tell like my agents, if you just go into, when there was, I don't know if the Barnes and Noble is still around, but you go into a bookstore, just go to the real estate section, look at all the chapter headings. You don't have to read the book. Effort management. Like if it says, like chapter 3, get them to say yes. Okay, I just remembered what that is. Chapter 4, whatever it is, you don't need to read the whole book. Like you can just read the chapter headings to constantly refresh yourself. One of the biggest issues for people who've been in the business as long as I have is that we don't, for instance, think we need a coach. This is what we're doing right now, is like a coaching session for me.
Yeah.
It inspires me. It jars my memory cells. And what you look at the most successful people in the world, the most successful singers, the most successful sports stars, the most successful actors. What do they all have in common? The most successful, they all have coaches. They all. Do you know Jim Miller from Chicago?
Of course I do. Chicago.
Yeah.
Of course
Chicago.
I do.
I mean, remarkable,
Incredible.
individual in that, like that, being coached, and because all it does, and again, it's the more successful people should be doing it, not the new people.
But see, you bypassed your book. You keep diverting.
I know.
One thing to not bypass your book too much, and everybody, this isn't a religious speech or a priest trying to convert you, but I do think it's fascinating that in the Bible or whatever book it might be, if it's Buddhism or another, I don't know that Buddhism, some people say it's a religion, but anyway, they're ultimate truths. Or if you read the chapter headings, you're talking about the chapter headings in the other book.
Right.
There's people that read the Bible consistently will talk about the messages that are in there of that wisdom and of that, failure is not lack of success. It's how you handle failure that leads you to success, and learning those core roots of wisdom along the way and being reminded and not forgetting.
Yeah. Just a brief story is that when I was the Padrecito in Guatemala, that I was way up in the mountains, and it was all these, Christian Bible study group. And one person stood up and they said, "Oh, Padrecito, why is the Old Testament's that thick and the New Testament's that thick? Why?" And I was immediately about to say about history and all sorts of other, like stupid answers. And another person stood up and he said, "Because we're still living the New Testament."
Oh, wow.
And I was so humbled. And there's certain times in your life when you meet people that you say, I'm going to be friends forever with them. In the same way, like I thought to myself at that moment, you've humbled me. The uneducated Indian stood up and he answered it from his heart. Wow. That is what, we're still living the New Testament. We're still, whether it's through our work, whether it's through our personal relationships, but is meaningless unless
Mm-hmm.
it changes you, unless it propels you forward, unless
Mm-hmm.
it's a dead a piece of paper at that point. It's moving, it's changing all the time.
And you've used the word journey a lot.
Yeah,
The journey.
yeah, the journey.
Okay. Last question. If there is one thing that we should remember, because we're just going to forget everything else, which we're not, but if we were, what one thing would you want to make absolutely certain we get from this interview
Holy moly!
or conversation?
Our conversation. Yeah. Go through the journey, and it can be a bumpy journey, and find your passion. It's and do not immediately say, like, this is my strength and this is what inspires me. Dig down, saying, so what? People say, why are you a real estate broker? And say, oh, it gives me, like, freedom, that I can do other things. So what? Why is that important? Keep asking yourself.
So what test? Yeah. Yeah. So what?
And then you find
get
that,
real with yourself.
Yeah. And then you dig down deep and deep. And then all of a sudden, you'll know when you hit it. I remember there was an interview like 30 years ago he was an Indian owner of a jean factory. And they said, well, you're making all this money and everything else. He said, what's the most important thing for him? And he said, hiring the right people. Is the people that he's, so he knew his passion was that. He wasn't focused on the money. I couldn't tell you, for instance, commissions. I couldn't tell you when I'm going to closing. Fortunately, my assistant gives me a piece of paper.
Fortunately, we have calendars, right?
Yeah, I don't, it's not important to me. But for other people, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, it's whatever your focus is, and find out what your passion is. But, so it goes from maybe focus to inspiration to passion, and saying, so, you can't jump to passion. Again, it's like, dating, since you're an expert.
Well, you're the expert.
I was saying, and saying, like, you just can't jump in and be passionate the very first second. You first, like, focus in on the person, and then you
focus in your industry and your specialty.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but then it carries on other parts of your life. And,
so you focus.
Yeah.
You find what inspires you.
Yeah.
And that's where you find your passion and your success.
But keep asking yourself, why does that inspire me? Keep asking the so what question. And then you're going to get to the passion. And then once you're there, you're going to breathe, you're going to feel life, and you're going to move forward, and you're going to do miracles. You're going to do miracles.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was an incredible interview. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, God bless.